And now we're in the present to our third match of the day. Thijs taking on Swidz. In this one down below, you can see the protection phase that took place. That Divine Shield around a class means it was protected, and it was ineligible to be banned. So again, Priest Protect. It seems like now that we're in the closing weeks, we are done with experimentation here in Europe. Protect the Priest, and then ban out the deck that's doing good against you. For Thijs, that means get rid of Swidz' Warrior, in his opinion. And on Thijs' side, Swidz has banned away the Shaman deck from Thijs. And so something that Swidz has continued to do, though, is take risks with the deck building in particular. This week, he has brought 2 copies of Archmage Vargoth, one included inside Quest Druid and one included inside Control Warrior. And the thought process, I think, is specifically a nod to Holy Wrath Paladin, where in Druid you get to play Vargoth with a Ferocious Owl, and then it duplicates that Ferocious Owl. Big deal. And in Warrior, very much the same thing. Either a Weapons Project or a Shield block alongside Archmage Vargoth will allow you to have that burst of armor that can bring you outside of range of that. But Thijs, no Paladin this week.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, Holy Wrath Paladin has been one of the decks that people have misplayed against the most in certain positions. I think we certainly saw a couple of spots in Americas while I was on work experience last week over there where players kind of threw away percentage in the late game against Holy Wrath Paladin in particular. So I wonder whether this is just like a band-aid solution, like covering cracks that shouldn't be there because these decks should be powerful against Holy Wrath Paladin anyway, but they're just not quite being executed as well. But I agree with the theory. Like, certainly Ferocious Howl in Druid is a card that I want to cast against Holy Wrath Paladin just for the cycle because it helps you get through your deck to that Elise, which can then end up ending the game.
Yeah.
So if you have the ability to cast it earlier, just using the Archmage Vargoth and still get the double up benefit out of it, that inclusion actually makes a lot of sense to me in terms of swinging that matchup. But for me, like, just play 2 Eternium Rovers in your Warrior. Like, he's playing 1 Eternium Rover and a Vargoth. Like that, just play 2 of them, and then you win anyway.
You know how I feel about 1 Eternium Rover gamers, all right? Yeah. It's just you play 2 of them. The card is disgustingly sick.
Well, you don't want to play an Eternium Rover and then coin Snip Snap and end the game against every aggro deck? No?
Yeah. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
The whole point of playing Warrior is to draw out the game as long as possible, Sotto. You see, if you end the game sooner, it doesn't take longer.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm on board now.
I do want to say that the Vargoth, while I question the card being there, it does make a lot of sense in my head to make your game easier. Where if you can cycle a Ferocious Owl or if you can cycle a Shield block, it just makes the game easier for you.
Sure.
Like, anytime you can make the game easier, that sounds like a good thing to me. Have cards that are good versus particular matchups, but he's missed the mark against Thijs this week.
Yeah, there is no Holy Wrath Paladin. That's the big kicker to this whole discussion, is that I think it's interesting in theory what Swidz is going for, but Thijs has stayed away from that Holy Wrath Paladin, and he's gone Druid, Shaman, Warrior, Priest instead. It's the other lineup, I guess, as you would put in European terms. There isn't too much variation coming in this week. It's just kind of that disagreement on what the 4th deck is a lot of the time. And that means this Vargoth, or these 2 Vargoths, might be a little bit dead in certain situations for Swidz.
Yeah, so the 2 things I'm looking at is I think Vargoth in the Druid matchup can see some benefit, like times that you have swipe turns with a loadie out or a Starfall with a loadie out. Like sometimes the Vargoth will Starfall your own minion, but it'll still AoE the other side.
Yes.
I still think that could be a benefit. I'm looking at Worthy Expedition potentially being something you could do, or even Hidden Oasis or Nourish. If you just have like the deadest of draws early on, you have to spend everything. The Vargoth can pull some weight in that matchup. Against the Warrior, I think you're already favored as Druid. No necessary speech for Vargoth in that situation. Mm-hmm. And I think against Priest, it is hard pressed to find a spot where Vargoth is actually doing anything other than just being a 2/6. So I'd say overall a negative in the Druid deck. And in the Warrior matchup, holy smokes, man. Like, what on earth is this card supposed to do?
I'll tell you what a Vargoth does against Priest, and that's be a perfect target for an Inner Fire on an injured Tolvir. That's what it does against Priest.
Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
It's not doing anything in the Warrior matchup. Versus Thijs' side, anyway. Like, if you want to make an argument for Vargoth being strong, I think in a Warrior mirror match, I would like to introduce you to Swidz, the Warrior expert.
He's the one playing the Vargoth. Hang on,
what does he need the Vargoth for?
No, I know.
Like, my point is, what benefit could it possibly have in the Warrior mirror match? That's his strength.
You're just somehow out of cards and you Vargoth Omega Assembly on turn 10. Like, I don't know.
That's like it. Yeah. I don't think he needs that.
Yeah.
We've seen him 10 turns outside of the game conclusion rub his hands together and savoring the meal he's about to devour in Warrior mirror matches, like tech cards in mirror matches. Yeah, right. Not for Warrior and Swidz. We're kicking things off with a Priest mirror match, though. Saddle and I were not babbling because we felt like it. We were waiting for this match to get underway. So now we've started.
Oh, no, it was our fault. We told them to delay the tournament so we could talk more.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. I spoke the opposite. Saddle and I purposefully delayed this point so that we could just simply talk more.
Imagine some people actually think that. I wonder. We are at the mercy of the players. We can't start casting gameplay until they start playing. Cleric in a fire going first. Swidz went for the highest of high rolls with his mulligan. Kept double buff silence with no minion going second.
I respect that.
What a gamer.
You're going second. Step one, get the right hand. Now, I will say that I disagree with it, but I respect it. When players take risks, Saddle, I respect that.
Fair enough. Thijs dutifully roping his Northshire Cleric on turn 1. Really no decision to be made there when you have Beaming Psychic in a fire coming out.
You know, I'm always told this in so many games. I'm like, should I play the Northshire Cleric? And if that's the message you want to send over to Swidz, I think you're trying to hide the fact you have an Interfire.
Yeah, that's why I said, like, dutifully he roped his turn 1. Like, he's like, well, I guess I'm supposed to do this to not reveal that my hand is so good.
And now, are you supposed to do the next thing, which is buff and attack? Nope. You
Play
use buffs.
the minion.
Use buffs to fight.
Yes. Buffs are for tempo swings in this matchup. They're not necessarily for face damage. If you buff here and go in, and then that gives Swidz the cue to silence, you've potentially lost a ton of tempo due to your best tempo cards in the matchup. That's not the way around you want to do it. You want to play your buff to kill a thing that they play.
And so now for Swidz, I think this is a very interesting spot. If you throw the Injured Blade Master into the fray, you do not have a play set up for turn 3. However, you can silence off the Cleric from Thijs, and Injured Blade Master would be the lone minion left up for placement into the Psychopomp pool.
You could also cycle your Power Word shields before you drop the silence as well if you want to replace those with other cards in your deck, which is kind of interesting to me.
I guess that's the question then, right? Is would you rather have no play on turn 3, no play on this turn? Because if you don't have a play on turn 3, what that means is the Injured Blade Master will remain isolated from the pool.
Yep.
Is that a benefit to you in terms of skipping the turn 3? I don't know. And using the silence, I do think opens you to some dangerous possibilities. 2 copies of silence in the deck for Swidz, though. And Thijs knows that.
He also knows, at least hopefully knows, to play his cards this turn.
There is some interest, I think, in isolating your own Psychopomp pool on Thijs' side as well. You could put either one of these in the pool that you want.
Yep.
Which one? I mean, hashtag the Cleric, but...
I don't know how to answer that question any more definitively than the Northshire Cleric. It's a Priest mirror.
2/6 is bigger?
Yeah. Like, I understand the question, which is why I sort of paused to think about how to phrase it diplomatically, but Northshire Cleric is a nightmare in the Priest mirror for the opponent.
Thijs isolated a different way, perhaps.
It just stops them doing anything if you have a Cleric in play.
You know, this is quite clever, I think, from Thijs, where he's loaded up the Cleric as a 7/3, and what that means is facing down a Psychopomp on Swidz' side, which I think is what Thijs is anticipating. He will get to trade the Northshire Cleric into that, and then Psychopomp it back into play and fight it off with the rest of the
Well, that's a
score.
turn away, right? Because it's still turn 3 for Swidz.
Yeah. I expected him to take this turn off.
Yeah, so I think, like, even if Swidz were to just play out another minion here, then, like, Thijs has all the options in the world, right? Like, if it's a small minion, he can just, like, suicide his Beaming Psychic and just play the Psychopomp for tempo. If it was another Blade Master, he could trade his 2/3, play the Psychopomp to res the 2/3, trade the 1/2 to kill the Blade Master, and then go face with the Cleric at the end of the turn. Like, he just had endless options the way he did it.
TLDR, Thijs is very ahead.
Yes.
don't. It doesn't matter.
Fascinating noises
Well,
being made by
I was thinking just protect the Light Warden from a Pyro turn. That's that's just super GG, right? I guess when you slice it down, pretty much everything here is GG.
Yeah, you have a 7-4 and a 2-5. I don't think you're super worried about Pyromancer turns from the opponent.
And I say GG, but, you know...
It was BG's.
Yeah. It's a Priest Mirror.
I still find them interesting.
I
don't
know
what
you
want from them.
Look, they're interesting. I just despise them.
That's fair.
There's a lot going on.
As much as you should let people enjoy things, you should also let people hate things. I think both are important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody stands up for me.
Yep. I think both of those are equally important life skills to have. Just let people feel the way they feel.
Look, do you think Star Wars would have been interesting if there was no dark side?
Are you suggesting that you're the one to bring balance to the Force?
It's just a sitcom with Luke and Yoda hanging out in the bogs of Dagobah.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
I'd watch it, but it wouldn't have been the same.
No.
Oh, now my head's just creating spin-offs.
Where does this extra arms go? Because I'm not entirely sold myself.
You see what I mean about the Power Word Shield?
Well, I think Thijs has timed it really well because this is a turn where he was scared of Pyromancer.
Okay,
so he made a big scary minion that didn't die to Pyromancer. I think last turn he wasn't worried about it at all, so it just didn't enter his concerns. This turn he thought, okay, Pyromancer's pretty bad for me here. I'm going to make a 7-4.
Sounds good to me. That does not sound good to Swidz.
I must consider.
I see a dark future.
In the light's name.
Yeah, I think he knows.
4-7-1-7. Value trade, value trade. Yikes. He just has lethal? He just has lethal. Yeah, sure.
They're both lethal, let's be honest.
They were, yeah. I do enjoy when killing my opponent's minions is lethal.
And now you've got the second aspect of Warrior, of which I enjoy the most.
Oh, you will never make me a Warrior player, Admiral.
Look,
don't you worry.
I will say that you only have 5 more layers of training a la Luke and Yoda and Dagobah to understand what I enjoy so much about Warrior now.
I'm just going to raise a giant tank up symbol out of the swamp.
Yes! You don't do it with your mind, though. You do it with Brawl. It's the last thing to survive.
It's the last thing that just comes flying out. You just hear a bunch of bells dinging in the swamp, and then just one tank up symbol comes flying out.
Yes, indeed.
Is he talking to you?
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe. We're amidst our third match of the day right now, where Thijs leads Swidz 1-0. We apologize for the technical issues we have faced. We seem to have gotten sorted out, so hopefully this stays the case. Right now, you can see down below an update onto where we stand in this match, where the bans and wins and protects and such are concerned, and we are rolling into a Druid mirror match for game number 2. Some pretty big differences, I'd say, in the deck lists for the two players.
Yeah, to say the least. Thijs has a copy of Mind Control tech in his deck, where Swidz has that Archmage Vargoth that we talked about a lot in the intro. They are both playing King Phaeorus and Cenarius at the top end. They are both playing Elise the Enlightened. They are both playing Zephyrus. So their endgame package is the same. It just sort of changes the way they are going about getting towards that position.
This Vargoth is confusing to me. I want to see it do something this game.
Well, we will wait and see, Admirable.
Like, the difference between having a Vargoth and having a Mind Control tech is the difference in how you can literally play the game versus your opponent.
Yep.
It doesn't sound like much, but that is a stark contrast.
It is, for sure.
Swidz has to fear playing Phaeorus or playing 4 minions. Thijs doesn't care. All right, now I'm very upset about the Vargoth.
Thijs picks up the Worthy Expedition. Gives himself something to do, but these things to do are very mediocre in terms of options.
Picks up a curious look, though.
I think that's probably the most sensible option. Can be used in the early game to take care of this card exactly. Thijs gives out the nod.
And you take care of it.
Continue to float the mana this turn, though. But that was his potential turn 4 play to be able to kill this Crystal Merchant.
Of the sun.
And Swidz has no such luxury.
Well,
he's going to have to leave it there for a turn as well at the moment.
Well,
he can Loti. That is a legal Hearthstone play.
you have a bootleg Druid of the Scythe.
Yeah.
It turns itself into much worse than it normally would be.
Ooh.
Opponent drawing cards.
I know.
You get a 4/1?
My brain failed to register that this was even a legal thing you can do. That's how much I dislike playing more Druid Loti in the Druid Mirror.
How much do you dislike them drawing more cards?
A lot, all right? Okay?
No!
You happy?
He's gonna... No!
What to do?
Use the Force! We've been talking about it the whole time. I don't know what to do. Look, I'm panicking for Swidz, all right? I tend to make greedy plays. Sometimes I don't. I don't know if this would have been one of those spots. I think with a swipe and a Starfall in hand, and an Oasis Surger in hand, I'm pretty interested in getting the Lodi online in its Terminator form. See, Thijs has got it easy. If you just had Druid of the Scythe in the deck, this is the easiest play to make.
Yeah, just cut War Druid Loti and replace it with Druid of the Scythe so you feel less bad about when you have to play it on turn 3 as a 4-2 rush.
That's excellent.
Claims me.
Quest complete for Thijs. Innovate.
Ooh.
Nourish picked up for the following turn.
That is right on time.
This is looking like a swipe turn from Swidz.
I might disagree, actually.
Go on.
So, if you swipe, and Oasis Surger comes down, you missed out on a Starfall target. If Thijs coins Nourish, the Crystal Merchant could be a liability. If he doesn't do one of those two plays, that means his turn isn't very good, and you are thrilled with that.
I didn't understand the first part. If he plays Oasis Surge, you missed a Starfall target? What does that mean?
So Thijs would use all his mana, correct? So the Crystal Merchant wouldn't draw.
Oh, I see. Right, okay.
Then you Starfall.
Right.
Kill the Crystal Merchant.
Right.
This looks like minus a swipe to me.
It looks like Swidz spent his mana and his opponent's stuff dead, to me.
I'm trying to dig deep. Just a question mark.
What to do?
I never mind killing stuff. I just think the turn was hard.
Swidz plays 0 Power of the Wilds in his version of Druid. We've been seeing more and more of those creep into the EU proceedings as the weeks have gone on, led by kind of Casey Bunnyhopper RDU's practice group.
So this would be the question answered on the previous turn for me. You wanted to get the loading down. In that case, kill the stuff. I will also note no Power of the Wild on Thijs' side either.
Yes. Yeah, they are actually pretty similar lists. Like, it is almost exactly, maybe exactly just that one substitution. I think it is. Just Archmage Vargoth for Mind Control tech.
Yeah, I was alluding to the stark difference in having minions in play fear.
What?
At the start of the match, when I said there was a stark difference,
oh,
that was the one I was alluding to. Like, it actually just changes the dynamic of how you approach it from each side.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you play Archmage Vargoth in your deck, you are entitled to call that deck starkly different to just about anything else.
Power of the Wild would be so good here. Seven mana, 8 cards in hand. Sounds like a Nourish turn to me.
Sure does. Something that I'm a big advocate of in the Druid Mirror is just cast Nourish wherever possible. I think if you just go all out for tempo in a lot of positions, that kind of plays into a lot of hands that Druid has available. I think getting to the bottom of your deck and having your Zephrys be active, having your Elise be active, I think that's just the most important factor of the matchup, because once you get to that position, you can bomb chain, you can play a huge threat every single turn for the rest of the game, or you can clear your opponent's board every single turn for the rest of the game, like whatever you need to be set up to do. Until you get to that point, your turns can just be a little bit wishy-washy, a little bit inconsistent. So I really do favor drawing through the deck instead of making tempo plays like what Swidz did here.
I do like this from Swidz, though, because he sets up for Nourish and the Flooped Oasis Surger on the following turn.
Okay.
My question is just always, what does it cost you to use the Floop?
The answer is a lot, but sometimes it pays you off.
And then my second question would be, what does it cost you if you would have drawn King Phaeorus in the next 4 cards?
Right.
Because you'd be able to slam a King Phaeorus ASAP. Perhaps you don't want to do that while you have a War Druid Lodi in play? Ooh, that could be bad. And that's very good versus that that Nourish Surger turn. Thijs just expending this Hidden Oasis for the 6/6 taunt. So now what did not Nourishing cost you?
What to do?
Ugh.
Is that
It's kind of a...
I think it's pretty good. 10 armor, peek at a card, play a thing in the way, set up for the Starfall.
Play a thing in the way? You want to Anubis this turn?
Something's got to get out of hand.
It's true.
Not the biggest fan of using Innervate all the time. Whoa. Is he trading the Lodi then?
Time waits for no one.
He must be.
I mean, you have to be, right? I don't want to do that. He doesn't want to give up the Floop Surger, though.
I mean, he could just drop it and make no attacks, I guess. Doesn't seem particularly exciting, though. Okay, does trade the Loti. Okay.
All right, well now I have a bigger question mark, which would just be process. I do not like giving up War Druid Lodi.
Agreed.
Sometimes you have to. But I don't think that this was a forced hand by any stretch of the means.
Mind Control Tech is something that he's always scared about. If he wants to develop the Oasis Surger that turn, we've talked about it a lot, he has to respect that card.
I wonder.
If he gives a War Druid Loti over to the opponent.
Yeah, that's not how you win that game.
So we're back to like Ferocious Howl, Worthy Expedition, play your Anubisath Defender, but it's a very weak tempo turn.
I think that's okay.
I
I don't
agree.
even necessarily think that you have to like play the Anubisath if you're playing the Surger. Like you got the card out of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You have a Starfall and 2 Hidden Oasis in hand. So tanking the 6 to face isn't like the worst thing in the world. I guess because Thijs is on 10 mana, you're fearing Feoris.
Yeah, but also just like if you don't play the Anubisath Defender, like what if Thijs just like kills one of the 5/6s and then Hidden Oasis is 6/6?
Yeah. You're not wrong.
It's just a yucky turn, which is why my reaction to Ferocious Howl, Worthy Expedition being the draw was like, yeah, I don't really see anything I love here immediately.
Elise active? There's 12 cards left.
There sure is, Admirable.
So it was active last turn?
Yep. Just wasn't playable. Yep.
I wonder what the record on like a stock Druid list for the earliest active non-duplicates left card is.
So Swidz has to draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards. So you can do it with 18.
I'm seeing 11 cards.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, you're right, 11. Just kind of one twice. I don't know.
Yeah, the old turn 5 Zephyrus. Slam the Mukla and they overdraw the Nourish.
I mean, jokes aside, like I kind of set this up at the start as I feel like it is a really important part of the matchup to just draw heavily through your deck so you have these cards active. I did not really approach the world where you just have those cards active, you know, midway through the game, but both players do. An active Zephyrus now drawn from Thijs. Only difference is that he doesn't have the Elise in his hand. So now, both of these players can actually start to formulate an endgame plan. It's hard to do that until you've drawn all your duplicates because you don't know when those active cards are going to come out. But as soon as you have, you can actually start planning long term. You can plan 8 turns down the line as to what your plays are going to look like.
I feel like you always have like that vague image in your head of what it looks like.
Yeah.
But vague
and
image.
then your 2 of just stays as the last 2 cards in your deck for the whole game. It just ruins that whole plan.
Like you have some ideal scenarios that you're thinking about panning out with.
Yeah.
Until you've developed some context, it is just that. It is an idea.
Yes.
A vague idea. Double swipe makes hand space. Anticipation of big draws. Also just a very efficient play. So now the question is, how important is the Lodi at this point? Can you start attacking with this? Is the clock do anything of value? How much longer can you preserve this and have it matter? I'm thinking in my head that Feoris still looks pretty scary, and so access to a powered-up Flame Strike with the Lodi and Zephyrus seems like a nice way to check a Feoris should it come out.
I like that. I just think also with this hand right now, 4 damage doesn't do a great deal for you in this position. It's not like you're setting up 2 turns, 3 turns. You don't really have a huge board to develop next turn. Like Oasis Surger is fantastic throughout the mid game when both players are on 10 mana. Like Oasis Surger on its own is not much of a huge threat. You'd have to be playing like Oasis Surger plus Floop to generate a huge board and threaten lethal next turn.
Power of the Wild.
Yeah.
I think when you have Power of the Wild, it definitely makes you consider this style of attack with the Lodi much more.
And Thijs does not.
So keep it hidden. Yeah, this is a really weird game to me where neither player has Nomi.
Time waits for no one.
Feels like a strange mid-game dance is taking place where like how you set up your Elise matters. So like you start to think about not only hand size but hand spacing.
Yeah. And the Druid mirror where they do have Nomi, like what I was saying earlier is just even more true. Like you just race to the bottom of your deck and then you play Nomi and you win. Like that's just generally how it works. Without Nomi, there is a much more back and forth dynamic, much finer dance in the mid game, as you were saying.
See Swidz already start to account for that hand spacing. That Nourish could be somewhat problematic.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Fireworks time.
A nod from Thijs as well. All right, now I'm curious. There is some wacky stuff Thijs can do.
What to do?
I am so greedy. I want to somehow get rid of this mind control tech and this hidden oasis and find a glorious world where I'm innovating with Elise duplicate turns with that floop still in my hand. Like, it's just impossible to do.
I'm kind of interested in having 2 mind control techs in my hand, personally.
Hand, Explorer?
That excites me.
Well, then I have great news for you.
Go on.
There's 2 mind control techs in Thijs' hand.
Yes! I think you'll find there's 4 mind control techs in Thijs' hand.
Thanks, Floop.
Does bail on his Elise, which is perfectly reasonable in this situation. Doesn't really need to keep duplicating.
You just can't spend this many cards.
No, you just can't. But it's just worth knowing that you do get that secondary Elise from the first floop, like the weird floop dynamic when you copy a floop in your hand using Elise.
The Elise Battlecry copies the floop as it is, but the Elise has entered play.
So the original floop becomes Elise.
And then the secondary duplicated floop is the original floop.
Yes.
Which was whatever it duplicated prior. Very weird spot.
Yep. Thijs played Oasis Surger after the fact, which means both of his floops are now Oasis Surger.
Yes.
Time waits for no one.
Swidz has looked very uncomfortable in the last couple of turns. He's looked indecisive, and by stark contrast, Thijs has looked like he's known exactly what he's wanted to do on any given turn. There is just an element of Swidz's play right now that seems like he's making it up as the rope hits.
I do think that's partially true. However, I like what he's going for here, which is he's trying to duplicate Starfalls, and I think this is playing into some weird endgame blow up everything Thijs has planned.
Sure.
And I think given that he's behind in tempo, that does make a lot of sense. The Oasis Surgers being in play, it's much tougher for Thijs just to simply develop into it. And this is going to give Swidz going into 7 cards and then down to 6 cards with the Elise, and it's only going to duplicate Starfall through Starfall. So he doesn't duplicate that second Nourish in hand, which would clog things. So I like where he's headed with this. I'm curious to see how it pans out in the face of a Feoris coming down.
Okay.
There is one thing I know, and it's that Swidz does set up very strong fatigue-like plans. You know, hashtag played Dead Man's Hand Warrior for a long time. This is the nature of his strength. My curiosity of it is how effective is that in the matchup?
I mean, he's a card ahead already in fatigue. I'm not necessarily sure whether that's a line he can go down.
Just duplicating Hidden Oasis and 2 Starfalls.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff. Zephyrus as well. You're setting up a lot of spells for if and when you draw Feoris. You get to throw away a Vargoth and not really worry about it. Like, there's some good stuff going on.
Meanwhile, Swidz just Vargoth nourishes this turn.
Okay, I might vomit.
Please don't do that.
Well, then please don't play Vargoth and Nourish.
I don't think he's going to.
Just going to go disenchant all my golden legendaries if he does that.
What to do?
He misses out on the Nourish, which he doesn't really want.
Need a
If he just
hand,
Elises
Explorer?
first here, which is perfectly reasonable.
I guess the question for the Vargoth is when
Time waits for no one.
in that case?
Job done.
You know, now it's becoming likely Oh, what can you do with like Zephyrus and Varkov? What spells could you get off that?
It's kind of exciting, I guess. Yeah. Things that cost 6 or less that can have a big impact. Had not considered it.
That seems like a difficult
We'll
task.
update you as the story develops.
What to do?
Yeah, he's built this in a very interesting way. I think he recognized he was behind on tempo, and so what do you do when you're behind on tempo? Find answers.
Hunker down, find removal, yeah. They've kind of both assumed the roles very naturally here. Thijs duplicated a bunch of threats. Swidz duplicated a bunch of removal.
I feel like the threats are better.
I do too. Particularly when Thijs has more cards in his deck. He just keeps playing threats and not getting them fully cleared, not getting them blown up. There's no tempo swing from Swidz's side of the board is what I'm trying to say, I guess. As long as that keeps happening. What?
Oh. No Tyrion? No Gorehowl? What treachery is this?
What on earth?
I have never seen it offer a non-Tyrion for 8 mana. I have literally never seen that unless it was just pure lethal.
So I've seen it do the, what's Inquisitor something, white main, right? Yeah, white main. I've seen it do white main over Tyrion in spots like that where you trade first and then it goes, oh, you want a way to res your minions, have a way to res your minions. But then specifically because there was a 5/5 on the other side of the board, it gave Gladiator's Longbow as well as an option, which is bizarre. But
So
a
you
lot
don't
of the
take the
time,
damage.
a lot of the time that would be the Gorehowl spot in that
Yeah.
situation. But yeah, very, very rare for a Tyrion not to be offered in that kind of position.
And it was very clear that, given Tice's reaction, he was expecting Tyrion.
Yep.
So my question is, should he have traded first? The trade, I think, incentivized the white
It
main.
absolutely does,
And because
yes.
that's your big proactive play, that replaces the proactive play slot that Zephyrus is favoring.
Yes.
And it says, how about this one?
Yes.
Time waits for no one.
I think you are spot on in that assessment.
Weird. Zephyrus, you are an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
It's Vargoth time. 2 6/6s.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But you know what else is pretty good, Sottle?
Go on.
Mind control tech versus 4 minions.
What if Thijs ends up getting better usage out of this Archmage Vargoth this game than Swidz does?
I was already upset with the Vargoth. How upset do you think I would be with it afterwards?
Okay.
However, if he's playing Mind Control Tech, it's 7 mana he's got left over, which isn't super appealing.
Yeah, I think crucially right now, he still has this second Zephyrus and a Cenarius in hand because he would just be starting to weave himself into this position where his floops were getting quite bad in his hand. Because, you know, they're not flooped Tyrions. He's just given up his white main, which is a pretty mediocre card to begin with. Now he's playing a Mind Control Tech, which is giving him all these copies of Mind Control Tech in his hand. But he still has plenty of threats that he can play out and use as a duplication effect with those floops later on.
I do feel like as this game continues to develop that the resources are vastly favoring Tice.
Agreed.
Time waits for no one.
And that's bad news for Swidz, because the other players who were on the chopping block as far as record were concerned picked up wins.
It's to trade in the way where both of his surges die, so he maximizes the chances of getting a... Oh no, it's just the... I didn't know what White Main did. It's a battle cry effect. Got it.
It's not Katrina.
I thought it was... Yeah, I was getting confused with Katrina for a second. That makes sense.
You know, it's just different. Sometimes better, sometimes worse.
So, clear turn from Swidz, because just about every turn from here on out is a clear turn from Swidz.
Yep, I'm going to be very curious how this ends up working. I do still see some light at the end of the tunnel for him, but I think it's going to be involving drawing Ferris sooner rather than later, and it's buried in the bottom 4 right now.
I wonder.
Also, there is currently a Crystal Merchant in play for Thijs, which is intriguing to me.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I'm not sure what it's doing there.
I think it's trying to die. Or be buffed by a
Trying
Cenarius.
really hard.
One of those two.
Okay, that's fair. So Thijs is saying, okay, if my board gets cleared, it dies anyway, it doesn't draw the cards. If it doesn't die, I get to Cenarius it and beat my opponent up.
That sounds great to me.
Sure.
And I think that's exactly what Swidz is trying to take advantage of.
This is kind of my issue with it, right? It's just like, it's not like Swidz only has two options. Let everything live and give you a fantastic Cenarius, or kill your whole board. He does have various middle ground plays like this.
I mean, he did take his own card draw in order to accomplish this, though.
That is true. That is very true.
I think it's start chain Cenarius time.
Who dares defy this ancient land?
It's 8 damage in the meantime.
Ooh.
Looking like a Zephyrus.
My suggestion.
It just offers...
Oh yeah, now I want Tyrion game,
I was gonna
obviously.
say, like it just offers Gladiator's longbow and High Inquisitor and Defender of Argus. But you can see like the plan here now. Like Swidz traded off some of his life, but now Thijs is very limited on development at this point.
But this is, this is my question about Swidz assuming that role to begin with and just saying I'm going to play for flat-out control. Now, I will caveat all of this by saying I don't really think he had any other options, so I think assuming that role made sense. But he was assuming the role of blow up all your stuff from a position where he was behind in fatigue, which is just such a rough spot to be in to begin with, because Thijs can just continue this game plan. Say, I play a board, you blow it up, one of us is dying to fatigue.
You have to think about threat allocation too. Like Thijs duplicated threats, he's out of removal. Swidz duplicated removal, he still has threats. Thijs still has threats as well. And, tack another Cenarius in there.
Time waits for no one.
Swidz kind of gives that look, raises the eyebrows. All right. As far as I'm concerned, it's Pharaoh's time. What's 19 plus 8? 27?
Yep.
So you don't die to Cenarius, Zephyrus, Savage Roar. In Swidz's position.
9, 13, 19 plus 8, yep. I see.
That tells me it's board tension time. What does that cost you on like a double Cenarius, though, perhaps? It's pretty likely that Thijs has duplicated Floop in this game.
Yeah, crucially, Swidz can pretty much start to piece together a good idea of what Thijs' hand looks like, because some of these cards have been played in positions where you know the duplicate will be in hand, like the Zephyrus, like the Mind Control tech, and then you have a pretty good idea that if Thijs went for this threat-heavy generation that he did, Floop is going to be in there, so I think you can kind of give your opponent credit for having 2 Floops in their hand right now as well.
Double Starfall? What?
Well done.
Goodness, I feel like that gives up so much.
Does start to make a very small Phaeorus.
So he's trying to fight back with his own Cenarius on tempo and have the last Zephyrus? Would be my guess. That seems tough.
Sure does.
I guess if he King Phaeorus, he knows that the Mind Control tech got duplicated. You're fearing that?
Yep. It would be a...
You had 2 Starfalls in hand, though.
Yeah. And so you get, like, Mind Control tech flooped out of the game or some nonsense?
No, you have 2 Starfalls. You can't.
What do you mean? Oh, you're saying you can even if the board swings, you can use the Starfalls to
Yeah.
remove the board afterwards. Yeah, sure.
I'm very interested. I'll be curious to see how this pans out. I personally cannot quite piece together the exact plan from Swidz.
Time waits for no one.
It's like a Hidden Oasis Cenarius turn to me from Thijs' side as well.
When you're getting down to the last cards, those Hidden Oases matter a lot, though.
I guess they do, sure. It's fair enough. What else matters a lot?
I kind of like Cenarius, Zephyrus, maybe?
No, I think
I wanted to load up.
if that's I was suggesting the same, but with like, I'd rather use a Hidden Oasis as a resource than the Zephyrus. Like, I don't think healing for a bunch is going to kill me in the same way as not having a Twisting Nether for my opponent actually sticking a board at the end of the game is.
What to do?
Because right now, Thijs is winning Fatigue, right? So if he wants to reset to just kill everything my opponent plays, that's perfectly reasonable for him to do. So maybe in that context, underdeveloping does make sense. I still wanted an 8/8 in play this turn.
Time waits for no one. Your wish is my suggestion.
Flame Strike this and push. Okay.
Okay, I'm interested.
I'm almost out of cards.
So now he does the Hidden Oasis turn. He actually gets a few points of value out of the healing. Delays it for a turn. Interesting.
We can't add the Anubis Athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. Careful there, Admirable.
All right. I think Swidz is in a miserable spot now, and I think this was brought upon himself as a result of this line. I think at some point he needed to create board tension, and he did not do so. And what it resulted in is Thijs just simply fighting back against. Now, Thijs, granted, had a lot of good outcomes go his way. The additional Scenarius was a big deal.
Yep.
But I think Swidz had this set up in the turn that he could have built board tension. He failed to do so, and I think that cost him.
Talking about the Feoris turn, or what you were suggesting as the Feoris turn, where Swidz chose to go with double Starfall.
It's not even necessarily that. It's just somewhere along the line.
I agree that there are multiple points in this game where Swidz did things that look strange to me.
It's hard to pinpoint, and so it's not really much of a criticism, I think, as it is like a what could have been done differently situation. Like, the right decision can cost you. That's a very real Hearthstone thing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so that's kind of just the image I want to get across, is that his endgame did not shape up, I think, how he pictured it.
Now, if he takes any kind of value trades, he's vulnerable to the mind control tech again.
I think you have to take value trades.
I'm out of cards.
Could have just crashed into the 8/8, I guess.
I'm thinking maybe a Flame Strike of Thijs' own.
So if Thijs is tracking, he knows all but one card in Swidz' hand right now, which is the Worthy Expedition outcome, the Oasis Surger on the far right. It's a difficult track because all kinds of Elise nonsense has happened.
Oh, wait, is it another High Inquisitor White Mane turn? Just can't trade that much stuff.
I like the mind control tech. I think the mind control tech was smart. I think this wins board. Like, this play puts you in a position where you win fatigue if all things are equal. So then you bank on that last Worthy Expedition card being something insane, like another Scenarius or whatever from Swidz.
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, you still have the Zephyrus to be the final trump card.
Well set up.
Swidz is dead. He needs the highest of high rolls.
What's the two best sixes here?
Damage Stegatron, damage Stegatron.
All right. Step one.
Damage Stegatron can.
No. You said two Stegatrons.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I wonder.
Oh, excuse me, and a Wisp. So it's trying to figure out if there's more mind control decks in his opponent's hand or not, as to whether this Wisp is important.
Well, the
exactly
innervate's
what's
important
happening
because
there.
the next turn with Hidden Oasis and this Oasis Surger.
Right,
There's no
right,
way
right.
you play that innervate.
But if your opponent has a mind control tech in their
Yeah,
hand, you
forget
play
it.
right?
I'm way behind. I already need good stuff to happen.
I love that that's what's happening here. It's just like, wow, does this wisp just bite me? It's so hard when your opponent has just like Elise and fluked like 15 times to figure out what their hand
Track
is.
better then.
I agree.
This is a huge liability to use that.
I'm not justifying it in any way. I'm just saying it's very, very difficult.
That, I believe, is game. Yep, indeed it is. Zephyrus going to provide some sort of damage buff for lethal here. And Thijs going to take a 2-0 over Swidz, who now, Swidz, the first player who's facing down the idea of a relegation spot, does not pick up the win today.
Yes, a win today for Swidz. He was in almost an identical position to RDU, where he would be very safe, but not completely safe if he picked up a win here. From Thijs' side, this is the first match where we didn't really hammer down deep into the stakes. Thijs is now at a positive record, a 7-6 record, which means that he is able to continue chasing that playoff position for himself.
Yeah, indeed, a very important win for Thijs in this one is trying to put yourself in that top 4. He mentioned it last week that this was basically his goal, is kind of take it one step at a time and just look forward to the playoffs at this point. Kind of have it happen in a fun season, but it's tense matches that mean a lot. And so in this one, I think picking up a win here is absolutely paramount. And I think that in that last game that we saw was a demonstration of why he won this game. I think he just played better.
I do. I also think he was handed the hand that I would rather be in control of that position. Like I said it multiple times. Like if I'm duplicating threats and my opponent is duplicating removal, I'll take the threats all day of the week, especially if they're a card ahead in fatigue to begin with. But I also completely agree with you, and I do not want to discount that. I think he also executed the Druid mirror game plan a lot better in that position.
And so let's go ahead and talk to Thijs. Thijs, can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly.
Well, good. How are you doing today, Thijs?
Good. I mean, I just won, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, I want to talk to you about probably the most curious part about the matchup to me, which was the first Zephyrus that got played in this one. Talk to me about that turn. What were you expecting, and what were the thoughts once you saw the outcome?
I was expecting Tyrion. It's actually really good in the mirror, Tyrion. It's 15 damage. It clears a lot. Suddenly your hidden oases are much easier to play. And I was actually super surprised. I was like, let's just trade first. So I'm getting it. And then I saw White Man is really better. I actually disagree with it. I think Tyrion was much better there. I think I was smarter there.
I agree, but you have to babysit Zephyrus. If you want the Tyrion there, you can't trade first. The trade first will push it to White Mane. So yes, it's very, very strange, but you got to know your Zephyrus mechanics, unfortunately.
I thought that was one of the weirdest spots to me. But it kind of makes sense, just kind of how the card works. So talk to me about the matchup in this one. You came into this week playing kind of the standard good stuff. What were your thoughts coming into this week? How many risks were you willing to take, etc., with how much was on the line?
Well, I felt for this last week, I have been playing Paladin 4 weeks, I think, in a row, or at least 3 weeks. And I felt it was too risky this week. I knew Swidz and Viper would all the time go Warrior against me this week. And I had to get away from that. I really like the Druid at the moment and the Priest. And I felt Warrior was very good for me. And yeah, I think I was then I think Shaman, a little bit different strategy than I normally do. But I think for this week, it was a good call for me.
Did you give a little smile when you saw the deck list? Because Swidz went super hard on the anti-Paladin, right? With the Archmage Vargoth for the extra Ferocious Howls and Shield blocks. Were you happy when you see that come out?
Yeah, I was like, got him.
So I want to talk about the ending stages of that Druid game as well, because we both agreed that we thought you played better in that Druid mirror. But can you in any way talk about some of the thought process? When you have potentially 4 Zephyrus and 4 mind control tech and 3 Cenarius and everything else in your hand, what are you trying to execute throughout those last few turns?
It's really balancing about being aggressive enough, and not being too passive enough. If you're too aggressive, you lose. If you're too passive, you lose. So you have to find the midway. We both had a very good opening hand, and then you kind of come in this mid game where we kind of don't do that much. And you try to just survive it with like using like your best cards left in the hand. And I think what made the big difference, like the way that I played my Elise compared to the way he played his Elise, I was very surprised the way he played his Elise. What I think is not good for the Mira. I don't know his options, of course, but once that, I was just making sure that I have all the time enough value left to keep dealing with all his threats, but also make the push plan so that I can just that he's forced to use like Severs defensively.
And so now, Thijs, with a 7-6 record, you're looking like playoffs are your next concern for you. So talk to me about your next match and how you're feeling about it.
Next match is against Viper. So, I mean, I feel against this lineup a bit better even than I think I am against Swidz. I feel very happy with my lineup this week. So, well, playoffs is, and this week I just want to go 2-0 and lock that spot in.
All right, well, keep the focus there, and you got another matchup across the board where it looks like someone had tried to pick off that Paladin that you've been bringing. So throw him a curveball, and I think maybe they get got here. Thijs, congratulations on your win, and I'm looking forward to seeing your match.
Thank you.
Could we have picked a more inappropriate dream crusher for the week? Thijs plays against Swidz and Viper with the chance to, essentially put both of them respectively in prime position for relegation at the time that he beats them. But Thijs is just the nicest guy in the world.
That's true, but it is competition. And when you think about European players in competition, he's one of the first players that comes to your mind as being dominant throughout.
Yes.
It's been 5 years of him just racking up big finishes in tournaments. 2-time European champion. He won an Aston Martin last year playing Hearthstone, which eventually, got him to buying a house, is what he had tweeted about with it. Like, this life-changing event happens because he's been beating people at Hearthstone. Like, he's a nice person, but it's like that's the one I'm always looking out for, is the person who's like super nice. Like, he's so good, and I don't want to play against him in that spot. I think he's like the perfect dream crusher for this scenario because it's Thijs. He's one of the most winning players of all time.
Fair enough.